Everything you've been told about protecting your energy is wrong. You don't need crystals, you don't need sage, you don't need to chant your name backward under the full moon, you don't need to escape. You need to return. Because protection isn't something you build around you, it's something you remember inside you. They taught you to defend. They should have taught you to anchor. How many times have you walked into a room and left with someone else's storm inside you? How often do you say yes when your chest is screaming no? How long have you been shrinking to avoid being too much? You think it's being polite, but it's been self-erasure. You wonder why you're so exhausted after a conversation that wasn't even about you. Why your shoulders ache after a family dinner where no one raised their voice. Why your body feels like a battlefield, even when your life looks peaceful. That's not coincidence. That's not overthinking. That's energy debt, emotional theft, invisible warfare. You've been absorbing other people's chaos and calling it empathy. You've been taught to open your heart without being taught how to filter the noise. And now you wonder why you can't hear yourself anymore. What if your anxiety isn't yours? What if your fatigue is borrowed? What if your guilt was planted? What if everything you call sensitivity is actually a high-grade antenna amp? The problem isn't that you feel too much, it's that you were never shown how to interpret what you feel. They said, toughen up. But what they meant was, numb it out. They said, be kind. But what they meant was, don't make waves. And you swallowed it. You swallowed their discomfort, their jealousy, their projection. You became a sponge because no one told you you were born a mirror. And mirrors don't absorb, they reflect. The world has trained you to make yourself digestible. Shrink your passion, dull your instincts. Smile when you want to scream. Be small enough to fit into their comfort zone. Do you feel how heavy that is? Do you realize how many versions of you you've abandoned to avoid making others uncomfortable? How many times have you apologized for your truth? Softened your knowing? Delayed your rise to protect someone else's illusion? Let that land. That guilt you carry every time you honor yourself, that's not yours either. That's programming. And it's time to rip it out by the root. They want you tame. They want you confused. They want you doubting your own frequency because self-doubt is the cheapest form of control. If they can convince you you're too much, they don't have to become more. If they can keep you exhausted, they don't have to evolve. This isn't paranoia, this is design. Look around. Your phone drains faster when it's searching for signal. So do you. You're not drained because you're broken. You're drained because you've been reaching for something outside of you to validate what's always been inside. You were born radiant. They taught you to dim. And here's the catch, they didn't even know they were doing it because they were taught the same lie. This isn't personal, it's generational. Passed down like an invisible inheritance. Be nice. Stay quiet. Don't feel too much. Don't speak too loud. Don't say no. Protect others' feelings, but betray your own. The result? A culture of open wounds, wearing smiles. And beneath that smile, you're screaming. You don't need more defense. You need deeper presence. You don't need to shield yourself. You need to remember yourself. Because the strongest form of energy protection isn't a bubble, it's embodiment. And no one can mess with a person who's fully in their body. No one can siphon from a soul that knows its own frequency. Power doesn't look like force, it looks like clarity. Let that become your mantra. Power doesn't look like force, it looks like clarity. Pause, don't scroll. Let that sink into your nervous system, into your cells, because everything changes from here. They told you to be strong, but what they meant was, be silent. They told you to be spiritual, but what they meant was, be passive. They sold you mindfulness while distracting you from your own mind. They commodified healing, made it trendy, filtered it into affirmations that sound sweet, but don't shake anything loose. Because real awakening, it's not pretty, it's a fire. It burns illusions and makes you impossible to manipulate. And they can't sell you what you already are. The school system taught you how to memorize, not how to feel. The workplace trained you to perform, not to connect. Religion taught obedience, not embodiment. And media, It kept you chasing images of power while hiding the blueprint to actual energetic sovereignty. You were shown superheroes in costume, but never taught that your breath, your presence, your attention, those are your real capes. They made the sacred look ridiculous, laughed at intuition, mocked people who feel too much. You were trained to call it weakness, empath, sensitive, overreacting. And in that moment, they stole the language that could have saved you. Because once you name your energy, you own it. Once you understand your system, no one else can hijack it. Every system you've ever touched has fed you one story. Be productive, be light, be useful, or be invisible. They want you fragmented, so you stay busy trying to fix yourself. They want you dependent, so you keep looking for permission. They want you small, so they tell you your bigness is a threat. You call it humility, but it's fear, dressed in manners. You say, I'm just trying to keep the peace. But inside, you're at war with yourself. And here's the truth that breaks the whole damn thing. No one can violate your energy without your unconscious agreement. And most of those agreements, you didn't even know you made. That's how deep the script runs. You said yes out of guilt. You've kept friendships out of habit. You've stayed in rooms that drained you because you didn't want to make a scene. But the scene was already inside you every time your nervous system flinched. Every time your gut whispered, this isn't right, and you overrode it. That's the programming. That's the leak. That's how energy siphons happen, not from dark magic or demonic rituals, but from the quiet places where you abandon your knowing to keep someone else comfortable. You think energy protection is about defense, but it's about truth. Speak your truth, and the parasites leave. Not because you fought them, but because you're no longer hosting. They taught you boundaries are mean, but boundaries are the most loving thing you can do for a world addicted to access. You don't owe anyone your time, your body, your peace, your explanation. You don't need to explain why you're tired, why you're saying no, why you're not available for someone else's drama. You don't owe them softness when they bring chaos. You don't owe them a version of you that shrinks to fit their narrative. If someone loses access to you because you chose your peace, they were never aligned, they were attached. Pause. This is your pivot. This is the part where you decide. And it's not for everyone, but if it speaks to you, you already know. You've known since the first sentence. You've known since before this video. Your body has known for years. So let's go deeper. Download the full decoding guide if you're ready, but only if you're ready to leave behind the performance and reclaim the pulse. Now breathe. Because the system didn't just lie to you, it adapted you. It wrapped itself around your instincts like a virus, not to kill you, but to keep you compliant. And that's the part that's hardest to see, because when you've been conditioned to self-abandon, your nervous system will confuse freedom with danger. You'll call authenticity rude. You'll feel guilt when you rest. You'll feel selfish for not saving someone else from their own patterns. But that's the twist. They don't want saving. They want feeding. And you've been their feast. You've been the battery keeping dying systems alive. You've been the lighthouse in storms you didn't cause. You've been the emotional support human for people who don't even ask how you're doing. You've been the one to smooth it over, to take the hit, to make it make sense, but it was never yours to carry. You thought it was your job to keep the peace, but peace kept bleeding out of you. And now you're empty. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the shape of your soul. That glow, it's faded, not because it died, but because you've been dimming it daily just to survive the noise. Let that land. Let yourself grieve it, because before you reclaim your power, you have to see where it was given away, freely, repeatedly, blindly, not because you're broken, but because you were raised to equate love with sacrifice. And here's the awakening. Real love does not ask for your soul as payment. Real connection does not require depletion. Real leadership does not thrive on silence. And real energy protection, it doesn't look like retreating. It looks like radiating. fully, unapologetically, continuously. Power doesn't look like force. It looks like clarity. Say it again. Breathe it. Let it melt the false scripts from your skin. You keep thinking the problem is out there, that if you avoid toxic people, unfollow enough accounts, clear your schedule, or move to a quieter place, you'll finally feel safe. But that's the illusion. Because even in silence, you're leaking. Even in peace, you're wired for war. And that's not your fault. It's your adaptation. Your body adapted to survive a world that didn't know how to hold your spirit. But here's the catch. Energy protection isn't about your environment. It's about your settings. It's not what enters the room, it's how your system receives it. You could be surrounded by love and still feel unsafe. You could be in solitude and still feel drained. Why? Because the leak is internal. It's in the script that says, you're only valuable when you're useful. It's in the reflex that says, take responsibility for what others feel. It's in the tremble of your throat when you want to speak truth but choose silence. That tremble, that's the crack. And through it, everything you didn't choose is entering. Your nervous system is not broken, it's brilliant. It remembers everything your mind forgets. The side glance, the subtle tone, the moment your parents' face tightened when you were too loud, the time you spoke up and got laughed at, the betrayal you never fully processed. It remembers the cost of being honest, the risk of being visible, the danger of saying no, and it built protections. Clever ones shrink, smile, apologize, absorb, adapt, all of it just to stay safe. But those patterns you built to survive, they're now the same patterns draining your energy every day. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your system doesn't know you're safe yet. It's still guarding you from ghosts, from echoes, from vibrations that no longer need to be feared. But fear isn't logical, it's cellular. And until you show your system something new, it will keep reacting to the old. That's why affirmations alone won't work. That's why boundaries collapse when your body still expects punishment. That's why no amount of cutting cords will matter if you're still tying yourself up inside. So here's what energy protection really is. It's a full body remembering. It's breath, intention, permission. It's choosing to stay with yourself, even when the room goes loud, even when the guilt rises, even when your pulse quickens and your palms sweat and your voice shakes. Because that moment right there, that's where your energy escapes. Not when someone enters your life, but when you leave your own body. You leave when you say, I'm fine, while your chest says otherwise. You leave when you feel the truth rise, but shut it down because you don't want to lose love. You leave when you smile through tears, when you nod instead of speak, when you feel discomfort and think, it must be me. That is self-betrayal, and it is the biggest leak you'll ever have. You think others are draining you, but it's your own disconnection that leaves the door wide open. Your emotions are not the problem. Your fear is not the problem. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is the shame you've attached to all of it. The belief that you're too much or not enough. That if you really let yourself be felt, someone will leave. Or worse, they'll stay and punish your truth. That belief, it's not yours. It was planted. And you've been watering it with every I'm sorry that you didn't mean. With every compromise you called compassion. With every silence you justified as strength. Let that land, because this is not a call out, it's a calling home. You are not broken. You are brilliantly encoded for truth. And that truth is loud, alive, demanding to be remembered. Your energy is sacred, not because it's fragile, but because it's powerful. Too powerful to waste on performative peace. Too holy to be siphoned by guilt. Too radiant to be dimmed by systems that never understood your fire. You don't need to fix your energy. You need to trust it. You don't need to defend your power. You need to embody it. Every breath is a vote. Every decision is a signal. Every time you say this doesn't feel right, you're broadcasting a frequency that no manipulation can enter. This isn't woo. This is biology. Your gut is a compass. Your skin is a boundary. Your breath is a sword. Use them. Remember them. Anchor them. Power doesn't look like force. It looks like clarity. Say it again and again, until your cells stop flinching. You've been holding your breath for years and calling it strength, smiling through suppression and calling it peace, stretching yourself thin just to keep others whole. But who's keeping you whole? Who's wrapping their arms around the version of you that's crumbling in private? Who's listening to the scream you keep swallowing? You've been taught that to be loved is to be needed, that your worth is measured by your utility, that your presence only matters when it's convenient. So you kept showing up even when you disappeared in the process. Let that land. You disappeared. You, the real you. The one with fire in her voice. The one who laughed with her whole body. The one who used to feel God in the wind. The one who danced without waiting for a song. You buried her for approval, for harmony, for safety. And now you ache for a life that feels like home but have no idea how to unlock it because you locked the door yourself. You thought if you just healed enough, gave enough, loved hard enough, they'd finally see you. But you were never meant to be seen by people who only look through mirrors of their own fear. You're tired, not because you've done too much, but because you've carried too many lies. Lies like, I can't say no, or they'll leave. Lies like, if I'm not strong, I'm a burden. Lies like, their happiness is my responsibility. Lies like, my intuition isn't trustworthy. You didn't just absorb energy, you absorbed identity. You took on every unspoken expectation and shaped yourself to fit it. They needed a fixer. You became one. They needed a cheerleader. You clapped until your hands bled. They needed silence. You swallowed your truth like poison. And now, the poison is in your bones. You keep trying to raise your vibration, but your soul doesn't want to rise. It wants to rest. It wants to scream. It wants to be held, not healed. It wants to rage, not rationalize. It wants to shatter the shell you've been hiding behind. That shell, they called it self-control. But it was self-denial. They called it grace, but it was erasure. And now you look at your reflection and wonder when you became this muted version of who you were meant to be. Pause. Just pause. Breathe. Let it break. Let it unravel. Let yourself grieve the years you lost trying to be palatable. Let yourself weep for every boundary you crossed to keep someone else comfortable. Let yourself feel the rage that says, no more. Because that rage, that is sacred. That is your soul saying, come home. That is your energy fighting for itself. Don't suppress it. Don't sedate it. Let it rise like thunder. Let it burn through the old contracts. Let it scream in your bones until you remember that you were never meant to be small. You were not born to manage other people's projections. You were not born to filter your fire. You were not born to walk on eggshells in your own skin. This fatigue, this numbness, this quiet panic you can't quite name, it's your system crying out for reunion. Reunion with your own spirit, with your own power, with your own knowing. So don't do it for me. Don't do it for validation. Don't even do it to be free. Do it because there is a version of you waiting on the other side of this grief, and she remembers. She remembers the sound of your laughter before you were afraid to be loud. She remembers how you moved when no one was watching. She remembers how your heart beat before it was broken. She remembers, and she's waiting. If this speaks to you, take the next step below. Not later, not tomorrow, right now. Because you don't need more time. You need truth. You don't need more guidance. You need permission. And you don't need more evidence. You need to believe what your body's been trying to tell you this whole time. Let that land. Let it echo. Let it call you home. You don't need more energy. You need less friction, less pretending, less performing, less explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You've been bleeding power in the gaps between who you are and who you've been taught to be. Every time you overstay in a room that insults your spirit, every time you answer a message when your body says rest, Every time you bite your tongue when truth wants to roar, those are micro-abandonments, and they add up. Over time, they become fatigue, they become doubt, they become illness, but they started as choices, silent, invisible, internal choices to disconnect from your own fire. This time, you don't abandon yourself. This time, you stay, you breathe. You ask your body before you ask the calendar. You trust your discomfort more than someone else's approval. You listen for what feels clean, not what looks polite. Because polite has cost you your power. And you're not here to be polite. You're here to be true. Because truth, that's protection. Integrity is insulation. Honesty is a force field. Nothing can touch a soul that's fully aligned. They can talk, they can project, they can doubt, but none of it enters. Not when you're rooted in your own clarity. Power doesn't look like force. It looks like clarity. You feel that yet? That rhythm humming under your skin? That's your frequency reactivating. That's your field coming online. That's you remembering. And from this place, this anchored holy place, you move different, you breathe different, you make choices from sensation, not from fear. You say yes from the full body, or not at all. You stop negotiating your worth in spaces that require you to dilute your truth. You stop shrinking your edges just to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. Because you were never meant to fit. You were meant to activate. This is what energy protection really is. Not bubbles, not rituals, not shields made of glitter. It's devotion to your own nervous system. It's refusal to override your own knowing. It's standing so fully in your body that nothing unaligned can stay. And when you walk like that, when you breathe like that, the parasites flee. The noise dissolves. The confusion clears. Because confusion was never yours. It was a symptom of trying to be all things to everyone. Now, you are sovereign. And in sovereignty, there is no confusion. Only choice. You start to choose different, not because you should, but because your system no longer tolerates the lie. You feel the misalignment before it becomes pain. You speak the truth before it festers. You release the story before it writes itself in your tissues. This is healing, not as a trend, not as a performance, but as a return. A return to your breath, your roots, your instincts, your original design. There's nothing woo about this. It's not mystical. It's mechanical. A clean yes, a full no, a body-led decision, a moment of stillness before you answer, a breath before you react, a pause before you explain. You stop explaining. You start expressing. You stop asking for permission. You start commanding your space knot with aggression, with presence, with truth, with resonance that says, I know who I am. And when you know who you are, energy protects itself. You're not here to convince anyone. You're not here to defend your path. You're not here to translate your soul into a language others understand. You're here to live it loudly, quietly, fiercely, softly. Whatever way feels most honest, because honest is enough. You've tried performance. You've tried perfection. You've tried disappearing and hoped someone would come find you. Now try presence. Try breath. Try truth that quivers in your chest but still gets spoken. That's real protection. That's what changes everything. Pause. Feel that. That's you returning to yourself. You're not broken. You're returning. Returning to the rhythm of your own breath, the knowing in your gut, the wisdom in your skin. You were never meant to live on guard. You were meant to live on purpose. And now that you remember the difference, the world has to respond. Because aligned energy rearranges reality. Doors open, noise fades. Clarity drops like lightning in your chest. You speak and people listen, not because you're loud, but because your presence carries frequency. That's the difference between noise and signal. You're no longer noise, you are signal, direct, undeniable, whole. You wake up differently. You don't reach for your phone, you reach for your center. You don't scroll to find yourself. You sit, you breathe, you check your field. Is it clear? Is it yours? If not, you pause. You clear it. You don't need a ritual. You need awareness. A hand on your heart. A whisper to your body. I'm here. I've got you. No one gets to enter unless they match our peace. That's your new standard. That's your baseline. Peace or no entry. Truth or no conversation. Alignment or no transaction. You walk into rooms differently. You're not scanning for danger. You're scanning for resonance. You don't chase. You attract. You don't absorb. You reflect. You don't explain. You express. And in doing so, you show others what's possible. You become a permission slip, a living boundary, a reminder that power doesn't look like force. It looks like clarity. And clarity cuts through illusion like light through fog. People may not like it, but they'll feel it, they'll respect it, or they'll remove themselves. Either way, you stay intact. Your relationships shift. The ones who only knew how to love you conditionally fall away. The ones who need access to your doubt to feel secure in their own chaos, they drift. The ones who met you in your suppression won't know what to do with your truth. And that's okay. Let them go. You don't have to drag anyone into your liberation. You just walk it. And the ones who belong will find you. Not because you chased them, but because your clarity called them. You'll lose some things. You'll lose the version of yourself that made everyone comfortable. You'll lose the fake peace that came from saying yes when you meant no. You'll lose the false power that came from managing other people's emotions. You'll lose the identity you built from survival. And what will you gain? Everything. Peace, space, sovereignty, presence, alignment, and a new relationship with your own nervous system of friendship, finally. No more betrayal. No more override. No more just push through. You don't push. You flow. You don't hustle. You move in rhythm with your own truth. You're not sensitive. You're accurate. You're not too much. You're precise. You're not broken. You're awake. And that awakening is not a trend. It's not a hashtag. It's not a phase. It's a remembering so deep, the bones in your ancestors stir when you speak. Because this isn't just about you. It's about every version of you that was silenced. Every time you wanted to say no and didn't. Every dream you delayed. Every knowing you abandoned. That ends here. You are the boundary now. You are the medicine now. You are the anchor now. And your presence, just your presence, disrupts old systems because it carries the vibration of truth. You don't need to prove it. You just need to embody it. Every moment, every breath, every choice, and the world will have no choice but to rearrange around you. This is the moment. This is the pivot. This is the line in the sand where you say, no more. No more leaking. No more pleasing. No more hiding. No more waiting. No more apologizing for a power that was always holy. Always yours. Always waiting to be reclaimed. If this hits you deep, drop a comment and let the world know you're back. Like, share, speak. This is the moment you shift it all. This is the moment you stop escaping and start embodying. Because the only protection you've ever needed is the courage to be fully you, and that starts now.